I see this often with bad leaders. They're very tribal. They are the chief of this tribe, and they've placed themselves there. They use manipulative tactics, which can make it easier for individuals to be drawn and controlled by such leaders.
Hey, what's up, family? Welcome to another episode of the Radical Middle Podcast, where we jump into the tension, talk about the things that you wish your church talked about. I got one question for Freddie today in December. You know, Merry Christmas is coming up.
It's coming.
My question is, as a leader, how do I get people to worship me? Because I've been trying for 20 years and it's not happening. No, I mean, I guess what we're talking about today is this idea of like leader worship. And most people wouldn't even say, they wouldn't use the term worship.
Yeah.
Adoration. Well, I don't know what, awe.
Admiration. Yeah.
But it's this thing where you hold these leaders up to like this place where then we're not truthful about what they are actually like and who they are. I mean, we'll easy see this in politics, but I want to talk about it in the Christian world. Like, what is it about these leaders that we just so want to lift them up? And here's the thing that I'm struggling with today. I'm joking about trying to be worship as a leader. I actually have worked my entire career and life to be like, deflect that. I don't want that.
Yeah.
Not that people were readily giving it either, but but
No,
I think you get to a certain level, right, of notoriety or fame or whatever, and it's a different game.
Yeah.
But it feels like to me that you've got to work hard. That leader actually has to work hard at creating that. So is it all on the leader? Is it the leader's fault? If a bunch of people out there are like worshiping a leader or like, lifting him up, whose fault is that?
Yeah. It takes two to tango.
Okay.
But someone's leading.
Okay.
So
the dancing metaphor.
Yeah, man.
Strong.
I for sure. It's a cliche. That's my middle name, bro. Cliche. I think, it's funny that you say that. Oftentimes as leaders, I think that there is a void that we want confirmation and over. Some of us need it. And so when we don't understand what it is, the void that we're trying to fill, then we actually like how worship makes us feel. And we're using obviously brushstroke here. Different things. So I do feel, bro, that this is pervasive in the church. And I think that it is a duality of responsibility here because, and I want to go over some of those things today.
Yeah.
Of what they may be, because if you're not aware of it, and like for example, you're saying like, hey man, you've tried really hard to deflect that kind of attention towards yourself, and some people don't deflect it. And I'll give you a good example. I've seen many pastors post the gifts that they get from like high profile people, or when like certain people like take them to like a fancy restaurant.
Yeah. And
they do it to say thank you, like thank you Tommy and Rachel for taking us out to Fleming's tonight or whatever, But we're also like doing it to like let people know like, hey, this is the kind of stuff we appreciate.
Wait, are you asking me and Rachel to take you to Fleming's?
I mean, it's almost Christmas and we haven't gone out like one time. We've only hosted 28 episodes up to this point. But
wow,
guys,
dude, okay,
yeah, New Year, new
noted.
Tommy. I think 2024 Tommy is going to invite me.
Level up, maybe. Okay,
just
make sure you post it.
Yeah,
this is the steak that Tommy bought me.
Yeah, for sure. But bro, like I want to talk about it today, man. I think that one of the things that in our pre-conversation you were talking about, like the biblical example of this was when Israel wanted a king.
Yeah,
and
for
Samuel.
Samuel.
Can you set that up real quick, because I want to get into some of these reasons that are very easy, these traps that are very easy to fall into.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. So like God, brings the Israelites out of Egypt, out of slavery. They cross over into the promised land. they're doing all these things. And as that gets going, you know, they had judges for a long time, people that just made sure, you know, they were living by the law and that. So you go through judges. You get to 1 Samuel and you have prophets as well. And so Samuel's there, and he was picked by God as a child, grows up, and then Samuel's like crushed when they asked for a king. And he's crushed because he's like, that's not who we are, because the reason they want a king is so that they can be like every other nation. That's what the scripture says. And it crushes him because he knows that as God brought them out of slavery, and then over those, you know, that long period of time for judges into 1 Samuel and in the life of Israel, that God was actually trying to create a unique and special people so that the other people in the world will come to know God as well through the Israelites, through this family and these tribes. And Samuel's been working so hard, and he's trying to keep the people, hey, stick to the word of God, and you know, we're supposed to be like this. This is an identity thing. And then they're like, we want to be like everybody else. And so they pick Saul, and Samuel's like distraught that they would do this. You know what I mean? And God just goes, give them what they want. You know what I mean? But what they wanted was, and then he says it in there, these kings will lord it over you. They will treat you how you see them treat other people, and yet you still want it. So they replaced God as the leader with this like human representative that then, will take their sons to war, will impose taxes on them, will do all these things. And so I see that. And so who they go pick? In Saul, they pick the tallest guy, the best looking guy, the strong, And so I feel like as leaders, like we get sucked into that space. Yeah. Where it's like, I want to be the coolest guy. I want to be the strongest guy. I want to, you know what I mean? I want to be the best speaker. And none of that's like, if you're naturally good looking, things that I don't have to deal with, right? If you're naturally good looking and you're tall or you're whatever, or you've honed the skill of, that's great. Bless you in that. But then to understand that how people see that and utilize that, and then how do you utilize that? Whose glory is it for? Are you replacing the glory that's meant for the Lord or not?
You think that it's human nature to just want with our eyes instead of our minds?
I mean, in some ways, I think we're biologically built that way.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, there's all these things in nature that like colored a certain way so that either humans would want to know that was good, or it's a warning sign.
So like height would, if we would say the tallest should lead.
Yeah, there's weird things where like people who are taller, like by and large, get jobs. Yeah, better paying jobs.
Yeah.
Right. That goes back to our DEI conversation, right? But there's structures like that aren't godly, that aren't right.
Yeah.
But how much do we want to utilize that in the name of Jesus to build whatever he's called us to build?
Right.
And then we do, because I believe you can build great things without God in the name of God.
Yeah.
I mean, we
100%
all the time.
Look, right now we're gonna mention some things, and if you're a leader, you might think we're coming after you. Maybe we are, and
maybe we're trying to save you.
But we're doing it out of love, and maybe you're following someone who you genuinely love, and that's awesome. But we're also trying to save you from worshiping that leader instead of God, and thinking that that represents God in the way of okay, my worship towards God is my worship for this person.
Yeah.
So we're wanting to save you from that. So we want you to add to this dialogue. Please leave us a comment. And if you like this episode and you haven't done so, leave a rating and a review. We want to hear from you. If you're listening to this, and if at any point in this episode we say something that you agree or disagree with, screenshot it so we can see the timestamp, tag Tommy and I, UYWI, and we will go ahead and have a conversation with you, because I feel that this is important. Tommy, I want to go over a few things, not all the things, but I want to go a few reasons that contribute to this phenomenon of why people follow bad leaders.
Yeah.
All right. So number one, I think this is I'm going to try to go back and forth between like a leader's responsibility and the follower's responsibility. Number one, charismatic or manipulative tactics. There are some, for the most part, if you're in leadership, you possess some sort of like charismatic qualities that attract and influence people. Like without, like, I don't think like if you're tall, but you're like dumb, like you're probably not gonna make it as a leader, right?
I don't know if that's true.
Oh, what's funny, because I think the person you're thinking about, I wrote that in my notes, think whatever. But like they're skilled at persuasive language, appealing to emotions, and creating a sense of belonging or purpose. I see this often with bad leaders. They're very tribal, right? So they are the chief of this tribe, and they've placed themselves there, or they've over spiritualized it, and God has placed them there. In addition, they use manipulative tactics such as exploiting vulnerabilities or creating dependency, which can make it easier for individuals to be drawn and controlled by such leaders. And they speak our language and say things in a way we never could. Think Trump.
Okay.
Someone who, in a moment where there was a demographic of people who felt like they were hurting, they were losing their job, he spoke their language and made an enemy. Like he said, oh, it's those illegals. Yeah. They're the issue. Built the wall. Simple phrase that was able to, we understand what that means. Yeah. Whether it's physical, like that built the wall comes with a whole plethora of ideas and policies that we think would be good for us. And so he made it us versus them. I'm here for you. Let's go ahead and fight this together. Just follow me blindly. And so charismatic and manipulative tactics, bro. And I've seen this in the church often.
Oh, talk about it.
My goodness. Like appealing to emotion and creating a sense of belonging. Like there are pastors that are just cunning, like smart at doing this, where their church is the safe haven and the place of refuge. And I'm not talking about like a spiritual refuge. And if your church has refuge in the name, I'm not talking about you. Just talking in generalities here, where like, hey, this is a safe place because I've made it safe for you. And if you leave this place, you're going to be in danger. And you know those dangers that you're running from? Yeah. You're not going to encounter them here because I made sure to build a wall, whatever the boundaries are, to protect you. Bro, I've seen this over and over. How have you seen these charismatic and very manipulative tactics be played out by bad leaders?
Well, I mean, I've seen the spiritualization. I've seen a lot of spiritual language used to keep people like when they're burned out, when they're trying to maintain that control. Anytime you hear somebody like where they bring up all the things they've done for you, or there's like a list of things that haven't I done this or haven't we done this? When I mean, and that's why our leadership development is really around like, you want to be around leaders that are like, I want to help you actually become everything you were created to be while we're doing this work, that they're for you. But when they're when it's really just about the maintaining the power of the church or the growth of the church, and then the top of that growth and the main tool we use for that is the leader, like that's where it gets really dangerous, because then everybody else is around there to support that leader and their vision. And that's just, I think, a dangerous place to be for people. So I've seen things like that, but I also have a disconnect from some of this. Okay. Because I think it's part of my personality. I'm not great with authority. You know what I mean? I'm not, and I've gotten to be the leader. Yeah. So I've either been under people but then God led me to lead my own stuff. So I've always been that top person. Mm-hmm. And then I've always tried to be like, but I see how it works in other areas. The other big thing that messed it up for me is almost every leader that I was under pastor has fallen into like sexual sin. Has like messed up. So I'm like, not every single one, but a lot of them. And I'm like, and I'm watching them and I'm like, dude, okay, I don't want to be like that. So what are the things? But I've never, I don't have the sting of the disappointment that other people have when they've raised up somebody and then that person's fallen or messed up or hurt somebody. But what trips me out is when those leaders do that kind of stuff and those people still follow them. And I'm like, what? And you know, there's all this language in this. Well, he's a good guy. And I'm like, no, he's not a good guy. He's a predator. I don't understand. Why can't you just say that? And it's hard for them to say that because of all the great things God did.
Yeah.
So they're like, but, you know, I remember with the Bill Hybels thing at Willow Creek, the women who were abused, like, they were like, why didn't you say anything? And that's not just there, but other places. And they'll say, I didn't want to mess up what God was doing here. So there had to be some like manipulative, like language and conversation around that, or that was told to them, or it was inferred. But that's ridiculous, dude. You can't mess up what God's doing.
Yeah. Which,
like, when you bring up the truth and do what's right. No, God's good in that. But the idea that if I ruin this man, usually it's a man, or if I ruin this leader's reputation, even though it was their choice to ruin it in the first place.
right.
But if I do that, it's going to hurt the work of God. And I'm here to say, no, that is the work of God. Like,
Yeah.
because one, it doesn't help the leader either.
You're
Like,
right.
they need to be freed from that sin and
Right.
that direction, because that's a pathway, right?
You know, man, I love the fact that you started this off with a Bible event. You know, found in these books. I think that the second reason I have, and I think you like, it's awesome that you bridged it, is one of the reasons people follow bad leaders is because they lack critical thinking and information. Like, they don't have all the details. And so when people don't know how to think, they're easily manipulated. Like, I agree with you. That is learned. When you say, oh, I didn't want to mess up what God is doing here.
Somebody said that to them.
Someone said that to them. That is that language is embedded in that culture of that congregation, organization, and they don't want to mess it up. And so in most cases, individuals are uninformed, misinformed, or lack the ability to critically evaluate the actions and behaviors of leaders. Sometimes you're just like, you make excuses for them.
Yeah.
You're like, well,
Yeah,
he's a jerk, but he's under a lot of stress. Like,
yes,
we have no idea the weight of ministry, or
which again was probably told to them,
right,
probably from the pulpit, right, about how hard it is. And I've seen leaders manipulate people like that, where they know something's going to come out, so they hedge it and they use language and they use their platform to kind of soften that. I've experienced that where something bad happened, a leader did something heinous, came to tell me first before I heard it from other people, so that they could shape the narrative of it.
right.
But here's the other red flag for me in what you're saying. If you guys are a part of a church or you're a leader and you do this and you keep a lot of things, I'll use the word secret, but there's not a lot of transparency. Like, that's a red flag, dude, because then it's like, what are you trying to hide? It's like, be transparent with the money.
Yeah.
Be transparent with the decisions. Be transparent with what happened. Now, there's certain places in HR law and things like that. I understand some of that. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about all the and the ways that we lie about stuff. Well, you know, we just wanted to bless them out. No, you didn't. You fired them. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
No, that was I have a friend right now who's going through it. And his church board, without ever telling him that there was a problem, just came and said, you need to resign. And he's like, what? Why? And then so instead of splitting the church, because the church would have had to come to a vote for it, the pastor's like, I don't want to push for a vote because it'll split the church.
Yeah.
So I guess I'll just leave and have to move my family, you know, across the ocean to try to figure out what God has for us next. And then that same pastor went back to help install the next pastor. Right now.
Yo.
And I'm like, what? Why couldn't you just come and go, hey, we're unhappy with this, and this. Can we figure that out? No, it was just like, so anyway, man, I think that's a red flag, dude.
No, for sure. I think that when we don't have all the information, we're not able to make good decisions for ourselves. And I think that this was part of the reason why, Israel was so quick to choose Saul, because they desired and they chose with their eyes, but they didn't know. They only saw the polished version of that leader. They only saw the Saul. Like, they didn't know his character. They didn't know his values. They didn't know his temperament. They didn't know the fact that this guy, in desperate situations, would just ignore what God had established in terms of like the sacrifice and stuff, and then take things in his own hands. Just be like, well, I'm the leader. I get to make this decision on my own. Like, no, that wasn't protocol. And so I think that oftentimes people just don't know. People don't know, for example, there are organizations where people don't know, how does eldership function here?
Yeah.
Are they elders in name only? How does the board function here? Are they in permission, or do they actually oversee? Like, who's actually running the church? Is it the pastors? Is it the elders? Is it the board? Sometimes there are churches that have boards just in name only. Like,
Oh, yeah.
you know what I'm saying? And it's just like that leader or that organization leader doesn't have to answer to anyone.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, like, God put me here. Like,
Well, and I think that's another big red flag, is that kind of like, and it goes back to even why the Reformation even came, because it was this idea that like, I'm the priest, or so it's just between me and God, and you don't have direct access to God. Like, that's not what we believe. So anytime you have a pastor, or you're a leader and you set yourself up like that, it's a dangerous place for you. Because then it's like, I'm the only one that hears from God.
Right.
I'm the only one. And the backside of that, it's bad for your people, but it's also bad for you as a leader.
right.
Because then you have to carry all that. Like, you know what I mean? Now, ultimately, the way I lead is like, I do it by consensus, and we come up, best idea wins. And so if there's a great idea and we make it happen and it's successful, then I'm like, I thank the team or the person who came up with it. If that same idea is like fails, I take the responsibility because I'm the leader. Like, that's how that should work.
Yeah.
And because God sees me, and he'll elevate how he wants to elevate. I don't have to work hard at that.
Right.
It's up to him. But, and so that's where, so I think that's a huge red flag too, is
Bro.
that whole thing. Like, well, God, you don't know because God speaks to me. And it's like, okay, so then we all have to wait, what is God going to say to you? Dude, that is every like bad movie I've ever seen. You know what I mean? Where it's like,
Can I ask you something, man? Like, maybe just a side note. Like, I see a lot of language, and I don't want to be too black and white, so I'm not trying to put you on the spot in that sense. But I see a lot of like pastors, in order to bring people to like Sunday service, because it's like about numbers. They'll be like, "Hey, don't miss this Sunday. God gave me a word for," and like they use that, like, God gave me a word, like, all the time. And I'm just like wondering, like, bro, like, is it just me that doesn't hear from God every time I have to preach like that directly? You know what I'm saying? Like,
I mean, maybe. I don't know.
It's just, I think that kind of language can be harming, because if the idea is God speaks to me like directly, frequently like that, then it's really hard for people who don't know to question, to even use scripture, because, oh, why do I need the Bible for? I can just ask my pastor. He hears from God.
Absolutely, right. But because it's kind of like, well, God gave us all the word.
So I'm just, and again, it's lack of critical thinking sometimes. Here's another reason, bro, like that I see, especially in urban communities, emotional needs and desires. Bad leaders often tap into individuals' emotional needs and desires, and they promise quick solutions, offer a sense of security, or tap into fears and anxieties. And so when people are vulnerable or searching for direction and validation, they may be more likely to follow leaders who claim to fulfill those emotional needs, even if those leaders have negative intentions or engage in harmful practices. These are father wounds, leadership opportunities, gifts, church hurt. Relating to someone as a gateway for manipulation from a bad leader. So all a bad leader needs to know is, what do you want, or what's hurting you? What's the pain point, or what's the benefit? Oh, you want leadership opportunities. That's why you left. No one else is giving you a chance.
Yeah.
Bro, follow me.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you opportunities.
Yeah.
And sometimes they do. They give you opportunities. Oh, your church hurt? Come here. You know, I have a lot of people that have been church hurt. Our church is known for being a refuge, a place of refuge for people who have church hurt. Father wounds. Pastor Daddy, man, we had one of our most talked about episodes. It's like you prey on people who have father wounds, who don't have a stable home, have dysfunctional families. And so you prey on people's emotional needs and desires for a stable leader who is present, who is loving. Man, like, speak into that, because some of us don't even realize, like, there's people who, like, don't even realize they have father wounds. And there's some people, bro, that for whatever reasons, I mean, you know, they just have elevated the leader, not only in place of God, but also in place of, like, their biological parents, you know, because, and then, so this is mad respect for this leader who's imposed themselves because they're tapping into that person's emotional needs and desires.
Yeah, man. I mean, there's a part too of the identity piece where it's like, if I can sidle up to power or authority, or it then shapes who I am. And that's what bothers me, is I'm like, but that shouldn't shape who you are. Like, the church that you go to, like, you ever meet people like that where they're like, oh, I go to that church, or or that's my pastor, or that's, and I'm like, oh, cool. Right. But what I really want to know is, like, how much do you know Jesus? Like, how deep are you? Do you actually live this thing out? What's working for you? What's God teaching you? How deep do you know God? Like, how deep do you know yourself? Like, how are you joining in with what God's doing in the world? Like, these are the things that matter to me.
Yeah.
Because I could care less about what church you go to or who your pastor is.
Right.
Because a lot of these pastors I worry about. I'm like, I think, you know, from experience, I worry about them. The pace that they run at, you know, the language they use, the amount of attention they get, like, those are all traps, you know, to something that will continue to take you away from following Christ. But there are other people that I look at that have gained a ton of fame that you go, they seem to make it out pretty good. You know what I mean? Like, you know, Tim Keller passed away earlier this year, and it's like, you might not agree with them. You might not agree with his theology. It's okay. But by and large, people are like, nah, that guy loved God. Mm-hmm. He wrestled with Scripture. He wrestled with the truth. He gave a great work to the work of Christ and to the church. You know, It's like,
and those closest to him would affirm those things too.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, you know, now if something comes out, you know, next year or something, I'd be super bummed. But
I know
it seems like, okay, that those things that happen. I think there are a lot of faithful people like that, that you don't hear about, who didn't write all the books. But I deeply worry about this aspect of it. But it blows my mind why the psychology behind, and you're sharing some of it today, why people follow terrible leaders.
Yeah, bro. It's sad. It's crazy, man, when I see, like, grown men and women, like, even make decisions, like life decisions, based on, like, what this leader's going to think of those decisions. I remember, man, my pastor one time shared a story with me that he has publicly shared about his pastor. And he used to lead worship at that church before, many years ago. Like, he had just recently gotten married. And he said that one day, you know, they used to have service, like, on Friday nights and Sundays. And he said that he went to his pastor and he said, hey, pastor, I'm not going to be able to come on Fridays anymore because I got a good job at, like, Home Depot or something.
Yeah.
You know? And, you know, he's recently married, had a kid. And then the pastor, he says that the pastor's just like, oh, I'm so sorry I didn't teach you well, because you're not putting the things of God first in your life. As opposed to, man, I'm happy for you.
Yeah.
You got stability in your life. You're going to be able to provide at another level, because it was like a manager position, I think, or something like that, you know? But they require you, like, there's a requirement to be able to work there. And so, like, he felt so guilty. Like, he felt so guilty that he had let his pastor down. And I wonder, bro, like, how many people are making career decisions, where they're going to live decisions, like based on like, hey, I don't want to disappoint this person. I wonder how many people are anchored to a job in an organization where they know they're not going to grow there anymore. They're burnt out. They don't even are passionate for whatever the nonprofit's vision is for anymore. But they just don't want to disappoint the leader because it's like, we're family, you know.
It's all that language, right? Yeah.
So, bro, like, it's sad. And I mean, if you're going through this right now, like Tom, if someone's going through this right now, what's the key to freedom, bro? What is the key to be liberated from this perpetual guilt that sometimes we find ourselves in because we've elevated these leaders to a place of like, man, I can't disappoint this person.
Yeah, I would go reference our episode on should I leave my church or when. Yeah.
Yes. When should I leave my church?
When should I leave my church? And I think those things apply to when should you get out of these kind of situations. But I mean, part of it for me is this idea of following bad leaders. I think another red flag is when you start to make excuses for them. Like if someone comes up and be like, dude, what's up with this person that you follow or whatever? Like, you know, they're kind of like a jerk to be like, okay, well, what's the, evidence of that? And then to just be like, yeah, they are. Or in that instance, like it's okay, friends, to like stop for a moment and look at something behavior. Because even in some of the things you described, I've done that to people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I would also say at some of those instances where like I was talking specifically to that person, I was like, I don't know if that's a good decision. It feels like you're elevating this. And then hindsight on some of those things were like, oh, dude, yeah. And I even had somebody confront me once and they go, when you said this to me, that really like bummed me out. And I was able in that moment to be like, yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. I didn't have the right framework. I was young. I wasn't trying to make excuses for it, but I was like, I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm sorry that I said that to you. I'm sorry I framed it in that way. I'm sorry that, right? Like, and so it's like that ability to be like, can you honestly, objectively look at something and be like, that's clearly wrong.
Right.
Instead of jumping immediately to, no, well, that can't be right. Now, I think you could say, wow, that sounds like outside of their character, but I didn't, but I think searching that out and then also loving that person enough, if you're close enough, to go talk to them about it.
Right. Yeah, man.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's part of our loving for, loving each other in the body of Christ.
It's almost as if you have my notes, bro, because like you keep setting up the next thing. Like, I think, and I kind of maybe want to just land or live or park here for a minute, the group dynamics and conformity,
Oh, yeah.
Humans, we're social beings. And so we crave community, we crave partnership, we crave being together. And group dynamics play a significant role in influencing individual behavior. Like, look at how we dress. Look at the teams we root for. Look at what we're into or not into. Most of the time, we can trace it to
herd mentality.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? The things we believe in. And so in some cases, people may follow bad leaders due to social pressures, a desire to fit in, or a fear of being ostracized. So groupthink, where individuals prioritize conformity over critical thinking, this can lead to unquestioning loyalty to a leader, even in the face of evidence of their harmful actions. Bro, you know where I've seen this the most, or I've heard of it the most? When no one says anything at staff meetings and people don't ask their leaders questions, like clarifying questions. And I feel that this continues to aid, like I feel personally, when I hear these stories, when I've seen them with my own eyes, I feel it continues to aid the bad leader as a collective group doesn't speak up. Like, we can all read each other's faces, but no one is willing to say something.
Yeah.
And so let's talk about this for a minute.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think one of the saving graces for anybody that's a leader in any space is that having the courage and the wisdom to know how and when to bring those things up. Like, if you're a leader, I try to create the space and I do things intentionally to make sure people understand this is a safe place. I actually want to know what you think. I actually want you to disagree with me. Not just to be combative, but to be like, okay, but we're trying to get somewhere together and we're trying to have the best idea. My idea is not going to always be the best idea. And if you're a leader and you think your ideas are always the best ideas, like, you're wrong. What? Like, that can't be right now. And some of you out there, you're like, yeah, but I'm a genius. And I'm like, okay, that's great. Then you need a better team around you. Get other people that are better at you in other places, because if it really is about the vision and mission, which it should be, of whatever you're leading, then you want whatever's best. You know what I mean? So, because if it's about you're always have to have the best idea, then good luck with that. It's probably going to be a really tough place to work. So that's what I think about that. I think we have to lead up and challenge and be like, have the hard conversations with our leaders.
Yeah.
To go, hey, you really came down on so-and-so that way. Like that didn't seem right, man.
Right.
Are you okay?
Right.
Like, what's going on? And if you're just met with like hostility and like,
that's a red flag.
That's a red flag. You should take that seriously and go, maybe this is not it,
So let me ask you something, man. When someone comes, okay, you're the CEO. When people come to you, right, and a lot of times, some of the urban youth workers that are in our community, right, are part of our UYWI family. They are in places where they're not the top leader.
Yeah.
And so they'll come and they'll say, like, they'll share, right? Because they need a safe place to vent. You probably have heard it all. And so they come and they share, like, man, my leader is this or the, imposing, all over the place, absent, a jerk, devalues our ministry, da-da-da-da. Do you like, what is your, how do you, do you ask them, well, have you talked to them about it?
Oh, yeah.
And so, like, if they say no, what is it? Because right now, there's some people here, man, like, you guys are describing my leader. I would tell you, you should talk to your leader.
Yeah.
How would you, where does someone who's never talked to their leader, is probably at staff meetings where no one asks a question. So that's the collective, that's the group dynamics, right? No one's questioning. What would your first step be?
So, I mean, if it's an actual conflict, right? I mean, I think I love the book Fierce Conversations. So go buy Fierce Conversations. It actually gives you a step-by-step way to have hard conversations where you're examining the truth together or whatever the experience was. So I think that's an easy one to just go and learn. That's how I operated like that already, and then I found this book, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it gave me language to it. It was phenomenal.
Yeah.
So that's just a helpful way to do that. But part of it, though, is you've got to, if you do go back to that, our episode on when to leave your church, I talk about how do I make decisions, right? We talked about, the triangle within the circle. And so it's just, wisdom, Holy Spirit, and Scripture do that process within the body of Christ. So people that you trust. So because each person, God's up to something unique in each space. So there's no blanket, like, if your pastor does this, this, and this, then you need to just bounce. If there's illegalities there, and that may be, abuse, things like that. Yeah. But for the most part, you got to figure that out. But so when you're in that space, it's about, like, you have to have the conversation. You do. And you have to be brave, and you have to trust that the Holy Spirit's going to lead you and give you the words. And then you'll learn a lot from the response.
Okay.
And so once you learn a lot from the response, you'll have to come to decision points. Am I going to continue to work like this? You know what I mean? How long can I last in here? You start asking questions. Is the leader going to do what they said they're going to do? And then this is the wisdom part of all that. Okay, if I probably need to start looking for another job. I mean, like, there's all these kind of things, important. But I think when you're not giving them the benefit of the doubt, and you're choosing for them when you don't have the conversation. And that I don't think that's fair.
You know, I also think that sometimes we don't give enough. What's the term, bro? I'm sorry, I'm blanking out on me right now. We don't give leaders the benefit of the doubt, right? When we're the new person and then we see like, hey, no one at staff is speaking up.
Yeah.
So we don't give the leader the benefit of the doubt, like in saying like, well, maybe they do want that, but because no one does it, they think they're okay.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately it's like unloving not to confront somebody.
Right. And I've had great experiences, you know, where like, and I know you have had great experiences where like you have the hard conversation.
Yeah.
You ask those clarifying questions, and the leader, no matter, and sometimes they're just not used to it. So after you get over the initial like response, when they're level-headed, they're like, you know what? Thank you for bringing that up.
Oh, absolutely.
Like I've had good experiences, and I think that this is why I encourage people to
have the conversation,
to speak up. Yeah, I'm like, man, you and I could sit here and complain all you want, but this isn't going to change a single thing unless you have the conversation. I want to know real quickly, real briefly, because like I want to end this like on just an actionable item as people, because there's people like we're ending the year. People are thinking like, okay, am I going to go into 2024 at the same job, in the same organization with this like really bad leader? Am I going to stay in this church where like this person's manipulative, like has possessive language? Dude, I want to talk about so many things, but what did you do at staff, or what was the example? What did you do at UYWI? Yeah. Because UYWI, from what I know, they already had a core that had been running together for a minute, right? And then now you come and as the succession plan for Dr. Larry Acosta was, I mean, you weren't unknown. Mm-hmm. They knew you, but you were like the new guy now leading this group that had been running together. And so the easy thing to do is one of two things. Either now they hold all the power because they've been doing this for a minute without you, and they've grown every single year. Or two, you come in and bust in the door, changing everything to make sure and let them know who is the captain now. Yeah. What did you guys do to make sure that we would create a staff culture, an organizational culture where we are able to speak up and not conform to group dynamics?
Yeah, I mean, I was super intentional about that, and you have to build trust with each person. And so you have to get to know them first and understand their giftings, how they're created, and are they in the right spot in the organization? And then I would just have these key moments of testing certain things. So I would say things like, hey, you know, what do you disagree with that? Or how, like, what would you push back on? Or what am I missing here? And those are critical moments, because when somebody makes a step out, even if I disagree with what they're saying, you have to receive it fully. Because when somebody goes, well, I actually think that's not a good idea, I go, oh, okay, why? But see how I asked it?
Yeah.
I didn't go, well, I mean,
why not?
Why not? You know? Well, yeah, no, I mean, sure. Well, you have a better idea? Like, you're telling people, you're shaping the culture as you respond. So I would receive it really well and just go, actually, and at any point I was like, you know what? You're right. Dude, what you just said is better than what I thought. Awesome. Let's do that. What it does, then everybody starts to go, oh, okay. And it starts to create that culture. And then the tough part of leadership, to make sure I'm not a bad leader, is to invite people to speak into my leadership. Hey, where could I be better? You know? And the other thing that I do, which you actually can use as a manipulative process, so I have to be careful of this, but I also just go, hey, I know I'll bring up my problem before they bring up the problem. Like I've said this to the staff a ton. I'm not great at communicating, even though I'm a professional communicator. Mm-hmm. So there are things that I go, oh man, I should have shared that with you, and I didn't because I was running too fast. So I share that. Here's a downfall of my leadership. Here's what I'm doing to mitigate it. And would you help me?
That's good, man.
People have a lot of grace for you when you do
Yeah.
like that. But if you're trying to carry that, you're like the perfect leader and you act no problem. Like, dude, that's a hard thing to carry.
Yeah.
And that's where like all your staff's already talking about you, man. They are. And they all get together at lunches and they make fun of you and they come up with all these things. They're just like, dude, what is, and you become a caricature. So the very thing that you didn't want to happen because you want to, is actually happening. But as long as you're successful, the trade-off then, as long as you're successful in growing or whatever it is, they're all going to stay on the boat because it's to identity thing. And that's the danger of this whole thing. And so, yeah.
That's awesome, bro, that you said it. There's a lot of wisdom to be learned in, Samuel King's Book of Chronicles in terms of leadership. You see good leadership, bad leadership. One of the things that I heard a theologian say one time that, Saul had Samuel, the prophet, wagging his finger at him when he did something wrong. David had Nathan confronting him when he did something wrong. But the wisest king to ever live, there is no prophet. And maybe the reason why Solomon had so many wives and the reason why his heart was turned to idols and maybe the reason why in Ecclesiastes he says, man, all this is for nothing. This is all that is meaningless. This is all vanity. It's because because he relied so much on his supernatural wisdom that he never needed a prophet and he should have had a prophet telling him, hey, bro.
Oh, yeah. That's genius right there.
I read that so long ago, bro, but right now you reminded me of that. And I think that some of us get to play the prophet, right?
Yeah.
In our staff culture.
Unfortunately.
With our leaders, right? Yeah. And it's a hard responsibility. And then for leaders, like, I love what you did. I love that you're like, hey, you gave those prophets an opportunity to say, go ahead if you need to wag your finger at me, And
and again, leaders, like, look at it as a grace that it's saving you from yourself. It's saving you from the system. It's saving you from the traps of the enemy. It's like it's healthy. It's something that every one of us needs, people to not worship us, right? But to warn us. Oof. Like I need those people that like sit with me and just go, hey, Tommy, you're getting a little full of yourself, brother. Like, or in a lot of cases, in my case, sometimes they're like, hey, Tommy, push into that more. Why are you shying away from that?
Yeah.
Like in your quest for humility, you're actually not fulfilling what God has for you. What are you doing?
Yeah.
I appreciate those people more in my life than the people that are like, oh man, you're so awesome. I'm like, oh, thank you. But I don't want you pouring honey in my ear. I need somebody to also be like, dude, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And you also need those other people that sit there and encourage you. A lot of us need that.
Yeah.
And that's true. But it's weird when you get to a place where someone's encouraging you that's not based on truth.
Right.
Like you're being a jerk to everybody and you're being a tyrant. You don't need somebody in there like, well, hey, coming up with these spiritual things. Well, hey, it must be the enemy or you're a jerk. Like you need to balance out in your life. You need to sleep more. You need to calm down. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You need a reality check. So,
yeah, man, I appreciate this, bro. Like, I think that this is going to be so helpful. And as you're finishing off your year and you're praying through things, one of our early episodes this year was on Should I Leave My Church? It was on another one was on Pastor Daddy. Like all these different, and I think that this is a recurring theme for us here at the Radical Middle because we want to live in this tension. We want to live in this tension when we give honor and respect to the office. We want to make sure we don't idolize the man in who's holding that office.
Yeah.
And so please ask questions, ask away in the comments, contribute to the dialogue. Now, I want to share something, if you've been rocking with the Radical Middle from the podcast from its genesis, and you've seen the show on YouTube with Tommy, if you started watching our podcast last year in 2022, thank you so much for rocking with us. If you've subscribed, awesome. If you haven't, please do so. But here at UYWI, our goal is to just make sure we're thinking about, over 1 million young people are leaving the church every single, like that is urgency for us. And this is why this podcast has been created too, because we want to have the conversations that people are avoiding having inside of the church. And so UYWI has certification programs, they have field networks, they have resources, they have all these amazing things in place. And so as someone who has been surrounded by people who have been through UYWI, have been engaged with UYWI, who serve at UYWI, and I myself being a beneficiary of things that UYWI has done, like in fact, like platforming my voice. This is amazing. Now, I want to encourage you. It's Q4, it's end of the year. I highly encourage you to make a gift. If UYWI has reached you and served you in any way, you've listened to this podcast, we've tried our best to make sure we have no ad sponsorship so that you could just listen through this as great as possible. Well, someday there may be, God might bless us with the opportunity to be able to grow this. But would you just please consider making a donation, a gift, a tax deductible gift before the end of the year? The holidays are coming up. It would be a blessing to everyone here at UYWI if you would consider making a gift. Now, that is my big ask for the end of this episode. We want to be good leaders, and we want to make sure that we give you an opportunity to partner with us in everything that we're doing here at UYWI. Please enjoy the holiday season. Don't get sucked into it. And make sure if you're a leader, you're not a bad leader in this season, pushing your staff and your crew to the max because you want to do some over-the-top production that you don't have the budget for. Be good leader. All right, till next time.